Well, hello, friends. It's Jewel here. Welcome to the Tuesday night live stream. So excited. Have great stuff for you once again tonight. If you can see me and hear me okay, give me some likes, give me some love so that I know that we are good to go. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So I am going to introduce you to Rob, and Rob got a new job. Rob's going to walk us through exactly what happened and all the good things that occurred. And listen, this is what I want to tell you. Listen to these stories. Listen to the steps that happened in Rob's process, the steps that he took, because I'm telling you, the same things can happen for you too. This is why I work to bring you success stories each and every week from different people. I want you to see yourself in these stories. Okay, Rob, I'm going to go ahead. I've already introduced you. I want you to go ahead and take it away and share your news with us, please, in the first place.
I start a new position as the VP of Customer Success for an cybersecurity startup, and I start the 3rd of January. So after kind of a long, circuitous journey, I have landed the kind of job I was looking for. I'm very happy.
Tell us about your job search in the first place. What was going on, say, before you and I got together? What was happening?
So I think with my current position in my current company, which I've been at a really long time, I think by most people's standards, when I started looking, I'd been there 7 years, and the company had been through a lot of things. I mean, everything from going public to going back private, and it just felt like it had run its course. Right? It didn't feel like there was a lot of forward momentum for the company in general and me in particular. And it just felt like it was time to go looking for something else. I think the other part that may or may not be relevant to everybody who's watching, I'm 57 years old. So I'm kind of in this position of, I need to either make a move now or, reality is that those opportunities are going to close. And so I was really conscious about finding something. A lot of people use the words, don't run away from something, run towards something. So I tried to be very conscious about running towards something. And, I think I would say that I'm a jack of all trades. So the search very much started in, well, I can do a lot of different things. So I can apply for a lot of different jobs and search a lot of different areas and see what happens. And I think really the search didn't heat up and go well until I really worked through that and focused on a couple things. And then I think it really accelerated from there. So I'll pause. I mean, that's kind of a general thing, but I think rather than me ramble, I'll let you guide me a little bit.
I think that's really good. One of the points that you bring up is about that focus. And I had somebody else here sharing her story during a previous Tuesday night live stream, and she talked about the same sentiment. So tell me, what is that? When you first start your job search, do you feel like it's natural to want to cast a wide net, to put yourself everywhere? What happens in your thought process in the beginning?
Well, I guess I do. And this goes back to prior to me getting into cybersecurity, I spent 25 years in the Air Force. So I feel like every job I did there was different than the one I did before. So my default setting is kind of this, I have a lot of capabilities. I can do a lot of different things. And I feel like I can do a lot of them well, but that doesn't always resonate in the private sector where they're looking for specific experience or examples of having done something in the past. And so again, just to add a little more granularity, I've been in the services organization of a cybersecurity company for almost 8 years, and I have done everything from build a PMO, to build the services team, to build support, to create training, to do partner enablement, and then customer success. And so there's a lot of different things there that I can use to kind of present myself for a lot of different jobs. And I feel like when I really narrowed down that where the market was hot and where my interests were a lot around the customer success piece, and started reshaping my resume and my messaging and my search around that things really took off.
Excellent. So that focus really worked for you instead of being all things to all people, because you do have a broad skill set. I mean, that is actually true, but you can't be all things to all people because that's not what worked. The focus is what worked for you, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say that. And I also think the market is looking, there are places that are, there are things in the market that are really hot, right? I mean, the truth is people need folks to build and run a PMO, but right now customer success just happens to be the thing that people are out there looking for. And I think, as I'm sure you would say, part of the job search is getting at bats, right? Getting responses to your resume, getting interviews. And as soon as I really switched the focus to customer success, I just got interviews, right? I mean, even there were times when LinkedIn posted something at, what I would call a company that's highly unlikely that they're going to respond to somebody who's just applying to the website, but it's a really interesting company and I didn't know anybody. I'd go ahead and apply, and I would at least get a screening from HR. I didn't always make it through because of their criteria, but I found that I really got a lot of response.
So I think the first lesson here that's really important, friends, is how important it is to have a signature story. Your signature story has some core pillars to it. And one of the pillars has to do with what it is you actually come in and do. And what I want to impress upon you is that while you may do 12 different things, and they're all related, I'm not saying you're all over the place, 12 different things can't be the core message. So you have to decide what you want that core message to be. Build your story around that. That's how you have a signature story. Any notion of being a jack of all trades, casting a wide net, it does seem like normal and natural to do. It does seem like it's your first inclination. And I understand that. A lot of people start off that way, friends, but focus is where you will absolutely find the opportunity. So that's really important. Focus when we're putting together your signature story. And that story is what I'm talking about, that's on the resume, that's on LinkedIn. Now, Rob, tell us about this particular opportunity. How did you find it? How did they find you? What happened there?
Well, I think the simple story is I actually had a headhunter reach out to me for this position. And I'd had lots of headhunters, lots. I'd probably had 10 various conversations over 6 to 8 months with headhunters about, and usually what was interesting is these headhunters were all out of the UK, about international companies, usually startups, looking for someone in an executive role. And my answer when I get that call is, sure, let's talk, right? Let's talk about whatever this is. And of course, they're very much in the mode of filtering through and getting to candidates they feel they can make a commission off of pretty quickly. So in this particular case, it went really well, had a great conversation, had all the skills the headhunter was looking for, forwarded me to the hiring manager, who's the CTO of the company. We had a great conversation, and then it kind of took off from there. As I was telling you before we started, I think it was about 10 weeks from first screening to offer, which seems like a long time when you're in it. But now that it's all said and done, I think that's just about average. That's what it takes, particularly for a small startup that wants to do due diligence, because they don't want to make a bad hire. They want to be sure, and they want to make you're sure. So it can take that long. And it ultimately led, I had to hop on an airplane and fly to Israel for a face-to-face meeting to close the deal. But I think my willingness to do that went a large way toward closing the deal.
So you're leading me to my next question, because you've clued me in on some of your interview process. I did know about the Israel trip. Tell us about the interview path, though, leading up to that. So over the course of these 10 weeks or so, which is the time frame from application pretty much to offer, tell me about the interviews, how many, how long, those types of things.
Okay, so I started off with, again, the hiring manager, who's the CTO of the company. And I think our first meeting was 45 minutes. And again, I think sometimes you're never sure, right? Because it's a structured kind of forced thing no matter what. But I think I felt like it went very well at the time, and felt like, yeah, there's some possibilities here, because just like the hiring entity is is going to be cautious about it. I feel like, you have to be careful. You have to make a good impression, but you don't want to spend your whole time being overly enthusiastic or I'm all in when I don't even know what you do yet, right? So yeah, there is obviously a dance that happens, for lack of better terms. So I had that discussion, and then they immediately said for what they would like me to do is give them a presentation, right? Give them a presentation on my philosophy around customer success, how I might build it out for an entity like them. And I had an hour. It was with him, the head of products, the CEO, and the head of sales. And I think the recruiter was kind of worried that maybe I'd phone that in, right? He said, hey, things are going really well. If you put the time in to this presentation, you have a good chance, right? And I already had a lot of this stuff built. And so I did an hour-long presentation. And again, at this point, I'm interviewing them too, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones who get to decide, but so do I, right? And so I had a very candid, these are things that need to be decided, right? We can do 87 different things, but we need to align on strategy and execution and budget and all that. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I had an hour-long presentation that I had to give them. From there, the head of products wanted to have a follow-on one-on-one with me. The head of sales wanted to have a follow-on one-on-one. And then I ended with a one-on-one with the CEO. All of those went about an hour, and all of them went very well. And at the CEO conversation, I did talk about risk, right? And the idea of I'm at a point in my life where I can take some risk, but and the good news is they're all military too, so we really synced up well. But the whole concept of regardless of being able to take risks, you want to be very smart and calculated about it. And so we had a conversation about the state of the company and where they were and where they were trying to go. And that's when he brought up the idea that maybe they should fly me over. We should meet face to face, have a beer, see if there's a fit. So again, a week later, I'm on a plane, flew over there, flew out of here on a Friday night, got in Saturday, quarantined till my COVID test passed. And then Sunday morning, I showed up in their office, and I think we went for about 6 hours. I met some of the other members of the team. We spent 3 hours with the executive leadership and kind of their staff, some of the strategic staff they brought in for advisors, and we were whiteboarding and things. Went really well. Got home, got a message that one of the key members of the board of directors wanted to talk to me. And I think at this point you start wondering, they haven't said no, so all this is good, but man, how many more hurdles are they going to put in front of me? But again, at this point, it's like, well, I'm all in. Let's see what happens. That meeting went well. And then it was just a matter of three references and we're done, which is still a lot. Took about 10 weeks. But in retrospect, that's just what it took. And I think the company wanted to be very careful about their hiring and deliberate and not make mistakes. And so that's why they were as deliberate as they were.
So I think there are a couple of important things that you're talking about here with this whole interview path. So one of the things that I talk to people about is the importance of mastering the meeting. And the meeting is your interview. The meeting is your salary talks, whether that's happening on the phone with the recruiter, whether that's happening with the decision maker on Zoom, in person. You have to go in with a plan for what you're going to say. It's really important, particularly for someone at your level, you're at the VP level. Also, particularly for someone in your age bracket, gone are the days when you're sitting there like a bump on a log answering the 20 questions that they throw at you, right? So I think it was really important what you talked about how you basically brought your own questions to the table. Tell us why you did that. Why was that important for you to get some things answered while you're going along this interview path?
Well, I think there's a couple things. From the very basic level with an employer like this, if you don't show up with those kind of things, that's going to be immediately a red flag to them, right? Do do not understand what's required well enough to ask informed questions. Are you desperate? Are you not interested? Whatever they are, if you can't engage in a meaningful way around their business, that's going to be a red flag to them. But I also think I'm at the point where culture and fit matters a lot. I mean, I had a lot of interviews in this process where by the time I hung up the phone, I knew, well, this isn't going to be a fit, and I need to politely figure out how to tell them I'm not interested. So, I kind of have a methodology to figure those things out. And some of it has to do with candor, right? It doesn't have to be impolite candor, but it should be direct and challenging, right? I think when they want you to describe something and something comes up that maybe you don't see eye to eye on, you don't have to be confrontational about it, but you have to acknowledge that you have, your vision is this or that, and figuring out how those things fit needs to happen. Because first of all, they don't expect you to be someone who comes in and just does what you're told. And at the same time, you don't want to go work somewhere where you're expected to just do what you're told. So that's all part of the dance you have to figure out.
That's so important. At your level, at the VP level, they want to see that you can speak up. They want to see that you have strategy. They want to see that you have ideas. They want to know that you're interested in their business, care about their business, will add value to their business. These are all the elements, friends, that go into mastering that meeting. You have to come in with something in the first place. And that's exactly, what Rob is talking about here. Let's switch gears for just a second. Walk us through the emotions. So yes, 10 weeks. How did that feel? You had 1 million meetings, including flying internationally. How did that feel? And obviously you landed the offer. So tell us how that feels.
So I think because it's gone so long, this has been a long process, and it's been long for a lot of reasons. And there've been a couple opportunities just like this, where I was kind of late in the game. I realized I was their backup, right? And so, at this point, I'm really very focused on outcome, right? So don't assume anything. Don't tell anybody, hey, I'm about to get a new job, right? You just have to continue to push to close, right? And try to do it as unemotionally as you can, right? We all have things in our life that we want to have happen. And so it's easy to get excited or emotional or anticipate or become impatient, right? So for example, when they said I needed to fly over, right? It was kind of this needs to happen now, or we're going to run into Thanksgiving, which means we run into Christmas. And of course, they're small, so that the admin person who was going to help me with flights, it took her 36 hours to get back to me, which kind of closed my window to get over there. But you can't really say, hey, why haven't you gotten back to me? You were supposed to get back, right? You kind of have to let this play out, because to some extent, they're the hiring managers. They have to decide, and there's only so much you can push, right? No matter how much you want it to happen, you have to do it in a way that they decide they want you. You can't make them do that. And so I think emotionally, I just tried to keep myself focused on outcome, do what was necessary, be patient, which I'm not great at, and allow it to work itself out.
How would you advise people who are job seeking right now as far as the best way to manage their emotions as they go through paths like what you went through? What's the best way to kind of keep your emotions in check?
Go to the gym, spend some time on a treadmill for sure. But I think the more you can make this business-like, right? The more you can understand that even though it's a highly personal thing you're in the middle of, it is also very much a business transaction that you have to be very mindful of, right? There's almost nothing about emotion that's going to help. Being anxious or disappointed or impatient isn't going to help at all. So try not to let those things get involved, right? Try to be outcome based, try and focus on what you're trying to do. The next step, do it well. And try and work through it that way. It's like in some respects, it's like negotiating for the car you really want, right? You still at the end of the day want to get the best deal you can with the best terms. And even if you love the car, to some extent, you have to be willing to walk away if the deal's not there. And I know that's really hard, particularly when you find a job you really want to do, but I think you have to figure out how to do that. And I'll acknowledge that can be challenging.
That is challenging, but that's good advice. And it sounds like you were able to control the emotional piece of this and keep it about business. That's really important. It's hard though. It's hard, because when we hang up the phone, get off the Zoom after an interview, there are so many feelings and so many hopes and everything else. And it really can be anxiety ridden in this process. But I want people to apply what you've talked about as far as keeping the emotions in check.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think one
Mhm.
other thing on that topic too, because I think as I was going through this, right, to some extent, I was just looking for a new adventure, and I have the flexibility in my life that it doesn't necessarily have to come with a 25% pay bump or a title. So I've had a broad set of interviews with hiring managers, and it became obvious the level I needed to apply for, because I had some jobs that I was way overqualified for, and the interviews just didn't go well because, and you'd have to ask the interviewer why, but in my impression, it was because I got done with that interview and said, I can do that guy's job in my sleep, right? And almost every one of those, when I hung up and said, man, not only did I tell him how to do the job he's hired for, I told him how to do his job. I got ghosted every single time I had one of those. I mean, basically, HR never got back to me. Nobody ever contacted me again. And at first, that frustrated me, aggravated me some, and kind of had me scratching my head. But then you just kind of go, that's part of the sorting process, right? If you being that person on the line with that hiring manager means they don't call you back, great. That was never going to be where you were going to land. Anyway, let that go, move on to the next thing.
Sure. And when you are overqualified, there's no real reason to go down that path, because even if you did land in that job, how long will it take for you to be bored? How long will it take for them to figure out that you're not right for whatever it is they're trying to accomplish? How long will it take for your, supervisor or skip level person to feel a little bit threatened? None of these are good things.
Right.
And these things usually come out towards the beginning. So you don't want to land a job you're overqualified for, because it's not going to be the right fit. I think that's the important lesson there.
Yes.
Well, so you are about to start. So tell us about the emotions regarding that, and what are you going to be doing between now and the start date? Because I think it feels good to have something, it's firm, it's all set. And now what are you going to do in between now and then?
So I think there's a minute of, oh, change is coming, right? You want change, then you get change, and then you're kind of, okay, now it's real. I got it. Change is coming. And that's a little bit scary. That's very exciting, and energizing. I have, as I promised my boss here quite a while ago, because I was pretty candid about looking, I would give her as much notice as I could. So she's asked me to basically stay through the 23rd of December. So I'm trying to wrap all the things up that I can for them on my way out the door. Then I'm going to take 10 days off over Christmas and start the beginning of the year.
Wonderful.
There's part of me that thought a longer, maybe a couple more weeks break would have been good, but I think the needs on both sides kind of dictated that. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Rob, thank you so much for sharing this story. Is there any final word that you want to let people know about? Any lesson that you learned, any advice that you want to give people who are still looking and who are watching us?
I guess you have to try and use every tool at your disposal to get your at bats, right? And I think all you can really ask for is to have opportunities. And I know that there are people who end up very frustrated because they feel like they're not getting it. They're putting in and they're not getting anything back. Be informed by that, adapt to that, try and figure out the formula to get you those callbacks, because that's the start, right? And as you start having opportunities to interview, at bats, as I call them, take advantage of every one, get better. Don't think that everyone you have has to be the one that lands your job, but take that as the process to evolve and grow your message, your talk tracks, your ability to answer questions, ask right questions. And then eventually, again, it'll happen. I think one of the things that really frustrates me is some of it you can't control, right? You can't say, I'm going to fix this today and spend 8 hours and then it's fixed, right? This is a process where all you can do is get your at-bats, take your best swings, and keep going. And eventually, an opportunity is going to align that works out, and off you go.
Definitely words of wisdom from someone who once was where all of you are now. So Rob came all the way through this job search process, landed his VP role starting after the first of the year. Rob, thank you so much for telling us about the steps that you went through and for sharing these words of wisdom. We definitely appreciate you. And I definitely wish you the best of luck. You absolutely deserve this. This was not luck that played in your favor. You went through the steps, you followed a structure, you knew what you brought to the table, you made those intelligent statements, you asked the intelligent questions, and I've been on this path with you. This sounds like such a match for you. It sounds like such a good opportunity. I'm very, very happy that you have this opportunity, and I thank you once again for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome, and thank you for all your help, Julie.
Okay, friends, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this story. I will continue to see you on the other side in our group, answering your job search questions, talking to you about your job search issues. We will continue to talk. Good night.